Okay, so we will get started. I want to welcome everyone, wish you a happy Mother's Day, and welcome to our special Mother's Day programming. I want to first thank all the staff at the shul for putting together such wonderful programming during this chaotic time, I guess. And there's been just such wonderful remote learning, and I'm very excited for it. I also am really looking forward to our tonight because we've been having these special Sunday night guest speaker series, and it's really been one of the highlights of the week. And we're so excited to have Professor Smadar Rosensweig with us. So I'm really especially excited. Now, when I first saw the topic, I almost jumped for a minute because I didn't realize how close Shavuos is, but it is very close. And we're just so happy to have you. Professor Rosenzweig is a brilliant speaker. Her reputation precedes her. She is married to Rabbi Rosenzweig, who a lot of you probably know. He is a Rosh Yeshiva at Yeshiva University, and he's also a brilliant Talmud Chacham. But Rebbetzin Rosenzweig is quite a scholar in her own right, and she's graduated from both Barnard and Columbia University, and she's very well known for taking very deep and complex Tanakh ideas and being able to make them accessible to everybody. And we're just very excited to have you as our guest speaker for this special Mother's Day event. And floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rebbetzin Babbage, for introducing. And really, I think it's so wonderful that the Fifth Avenue Synagogue is having this wonderful program on the Sundays and in general. And I know that there's so much learning going on in the shul. I do want to give a shout out, even though my screen, usually when I'm running Zoom, I'm the host, I have the controls, see everybody. But my father did say that he is joining in and calling up. So I do want to give my father a shout out. So even though it's Mother's Day, I'm giving a shout out to my father as a little bit of a daughter to father, issue. So hi, Abba, and welcome to the shiur this evening as well. Okay, our topic for this evening is the power of compassion in the Book of Ruth. The power of compassion and chesed and rachamim in Megillat Ruth. And there's a big question. Why do we read Megillat Ruth on Shavuot? One view is because Megillat Ruth talks about the lineage of David HaMelech, and David HaMelech, according to the Midrash, was born and died on Shavuot. So that's one reason. Another reason is that Shavuot is during the wheat harvest, Pesach is during the barley harvest, and the story of Megillat Ruth takes place during the barley harvest into the wheat harvest. So it takes place during the same time of the calendar. Another important reason, though, is that Megillat Ruth is the Megillah of chesed, of compassion, of gemilut chasadim, of caring for others. When we come to Kabbalat HaTorah, when we come to Shavuot, we also have to realize that chesed, Torat chesed, being compassionate, caring about others, is something that is very important and intrinsic to Am Yisrael. It's so central. In the Midrash, in Ruth Rabbah, the Midrash asks a very important question. It says, Amar Rav Ze'era, Megillah zu ein ba lo tuma velo tahara, lo isur velo heter velama nichteva. The question is that Megillat Ruth doesn't have issues of isur v'heter. It doesn't have deep halachic issues according to this Midrash. And why was it written? Lilamedcha kama sachar tov legomlei chasadim. To tell us how important it is for people to do chesed. Now you have to understand of halachot. There are a lot of halachot in Megillat Ruth. There's the halacha of leket, of shikha, of peah, the issue of giving harvest from the corner of your field. There is of giving tzedakah, of letting Ruth and Naomi in. There is the issue of yibum, levirate marriages, the idea of geula, redemption marriages. We learn the minhag / halacha that you need 10 men, a minyan, when you're getting married, when Boaz marries Ruth at the gate of the city. So why does this Midrash say this idea? Because the main idea, even though we learn so many halachot in Megillat Ruth, even more than Esther, which has the halachot, but of Megillat Esther and Purim, more than Eicha, more than Kohelet, more than Shir Hashirim, is because one of the main ideas, as the Midrash says, is that Gemilut Chasadim and Chesed take a major spotlight in Megillat Ruth. And that's what I want to focus on today. There's so many beautiful ideas to focus on in Megillat Ruth, but this evening I want to focus on the idea of Chesed. And that's why I titled this shiur, The Power of Compassion in Megillat Ruth. So let's begin. We see in Ruth Parak Aleph, we're in source number 1, that in the time of Shvot HaShoftim, in the time of the judges, I did Hebrew and English for you, in the time of the Shoftim, in the time of the judges, and we know the time of the judges, there's no central king in Am Yisrael. There was a famine in the land. And when there was a famine, this man goes from his town in Beit Lechem, and he goes to live in the fields of Moab, him and his wife and his 2 sons. Now you have to understand, this sounds similar to us. Doesn't it sound like Avraham? Avraham comes to Canaan, and there's also a famine in the land, and he leaves. So are we expecting this to be a wonderful story? A story of success of Elimelech, of this individual who's not named in the beginning? Or are we setting up that there's going to be a dichotomy? There's going to be a conflict, a contrast between what this individual does and what Avraham does. Are we waiting for a celebration about this individual or a criticism of this individual? And remember, it starts anonymously during the time of the judges. During the time of the judges, there's no king. Israel is already established in Israel, though, and all the leaders have responsibility for their people. Here it just says, Vayhi ra'av ba'aretz vayelech. There's a famine in the land, and boom, this individual leaves. With Avraham, it says there was a heavy famine in the land, ra'av kaved, and he goes down to Egypt with all of his family. When you go down to Moab, when you go, and it's not down, it's really more, you're going east to Moab, they have even less rainfall, and it's not a land of plenty, Jordan of today. Whereas when you go down to Egypt, we know Egypt is the land of plenty. They had storehouses for wheat. The Nile really irrigated the land. So when this individual, even though anonymously, and on this first pasuk, we already realize that there might be negative vibes. Additionally, no one left with just their nuclear family. There was no such thing as a nuclear family during that time, that you just left with your wife and your 2 sons. You had extensive relatives. You had many people that you had to be involved with. My mother, Alea Shalom, always tells from the Holocaust that when my grandfather wanted to leave, he first asked the grandmothers and the grandfathers and the extended family. He said, we have to escape before the Nazis and the Germans come. There was no way he would think of just escaping alone. Only after everybody did not want to leave with him was he able to save his immediate family and other people from the community who listened to him. So in the time of the Tanakh, it is very unusual to talk about an individual as a nuclear family. Only in the next pasuk do we know who this is. V'shem ha'ish Elimelech, his name is Elimelech, and already by the name we see that he should be a king. He comes from a kingly background. And the truth is, he is from Beit Lechem, and we learn later that he's from Shevet Yehuda. He should be the leader of his time period. There are no kings, and we know that Yehuda is designated, and they should be really stepping up and taking responsibility for their community. But yet this man Elimelech, who has potential to be king, leaves. And he takes his wife, and we learn her name, Naomi, sweet, kind, compassionate. If she was sweet, kind, compassionate, she also should have stayed back and taken care of everybody. So their names already show that they should have taken responsibility for the community. And the 2 sons are Machlon and Chilion. Ephratiyim means important people from Beit Lechem Yehuda. We expected them to take a responsibility for the community during a time of famine. But instead, they go to Moab and they stay there. Again, contrast to Avraham Avinu. And right away it tells us that Elimelech dies, and Naomi, her husband, died, and she only remains, her and her 2 sons. What's fascinating here for us is that it mentions that Naomi, now bereft of her husband, is only left with her 2 sons. And the question is the depiction here that Naomi, we understand, is helpless because her husband died and now the 2 sons should take over? Or is the Megillah telling us we're waiting for Naomi to do something, to take charge? Maybe when her husband said we're going down to Mitzrayim, she didn't take charge. Her husband, he's the leader of the family, he made this decision. But what about now after he passed away? Will she take charge in order to go back to Israel? Is she going to take responsibility and leadership and really lead her 2 sons who are unattached at this time to go back to Israel? Yet she doesn't step in. The 2 sons marry in Moab, and they marry 2 daughters, 2 individuals, one named Orpah and one named Ruth. And they stay there another 10 years. Again, a contrast to Abraham. Again, the language of the Megillah is very important. Abraham lives in Israel for 10 years until finally he takes Hagar in order to have a child. Whereas here they stay in Moab, and even though they're childless, they just stay in Moab. They don't look to Israel as a place that they should go and maybe take responsibility and act upon this journey. Only after the 2 sons die, and when she is bereft of her 2 sons and of her husband, only then Pasuk Vav tells us, verse 6 tells us, Vatakamhi v'chaloteha, she gets up, and why? Ki sham'a bizde Moav, she heard in Moab already, ki pakad Hashem et amo latet lahem lachem, that Hashem remembers Am Yisrael to give them bread. And here is a point I want to emphasize. We are waiting for Naomi to take proactive action. Throughout Tanakh, we see that the women step up. Now, maybe they don't step up right away, but clearly when the husband dies or the husband's not stepping in, the women step in. Here we're disappointed that Naomi does not step in at any point, and only now she will rise up and take, right, the 2 daughters-in-law, or they come willingly by their own, right? It says, Vatakamhi v'chaloteha, she gets up, and her daughters-in-law, there's no implication even of her saying, come with me. She gets up, so they automatically get up. And again, for Mother's Day, I think this is a wonderful message because these are daughters-in-law, and even the sons are not alive anymore. And look how devoted these daughters-in-law are to the mother-in-law. So that's a real Mother's Day message for us to take. This unbelievable connection that she had. So there is something about Naomi that really brings loyalty, that brings others to feel a certain way for her, because she is someone special and unique. Her name is symbolic. But she wasn't using that personality and that ability and that charm and that wonderful way about her within the family and to make decisions. But now she makes a decision to go back because she hears Hashem remembered Am Yisrael to give them bread. And this is a very important point that I want to make in this shiur. What we're going to see is that Naomi beautifully relies on Hashem and sees that Hashem remembered Am Yisrael to give them bread. But really, who should have been in Israel giving the people bread? It really should have been her and her family and her husband and her sons. It says in the beginning that they were upstanding people in the community, but they only wanted to save their own assets. They only cared about themselves. And everyone should fend for themselves because God is the decider. Hashem remembers Am Yisrael to give them bread. The lack of personal responsibility, the lack of realizing that they have to take responsibility and act on what's going on. I want to go to number 3a, source number 3a. In Ruth Rabbah, Parsha Aleph, we see a very, down. 3a, not page 3a, source 3a. Yeah, no, let's get a little higher. There we go. No, 3a, source 3a, yeah. Ruth Rabbah. What we see fascinatingly here is that this is not my view that I'm being critical of Elimelech, right? It's in the pshat, it's in the simple text. But we see that the Midrash is very critical of Elimelech. They also see in this story what went on. Look at 3a, Ruth Rabbah. V'hayu bnei hamedina omrim, zehu shayinu betuchim alav omrim. This person, Elimelech, we were relying on him. He was an upstanding person in the community. And we knew when things would get bad. And as we know, sometimes things get bad. Look, we're in coronavirus right now. Who would have imagined this? And they knew, even though some years we had plenty and there was rain, some years could be devastating famine. You never know what could happen one year to the next. But we felt secure that we had Elimelech in our community, who was a wealthy, upstanding citizen, and we expected when there would be a famine, that he would take a leadership responsibility and help us. But instead, we are finding that when the famine came, Kol Yisrael misovavin al pitri. He said, everyone's coming to my doorstep to ask for a donation. Everyone's coming with their little pushka, or they're coming with their little satchel. So what did he do? Amad v'barach lo mipnehem. He escapes and leaves Eretz Yisrael. So the Midrash is very critical. He only cared about himself. So what we're understanding is that this attitude, and you could say originally, well, Naomi, she has to follow her husband. Whatever her husband says goes. But what about when she was left with only the two sons? Should she have made a decision? Should she have taken a certain route? And even with her decision and with the motivation, we see something very interesting. Pakat Hashem et amo. And again, this is beautiful. Having this emuna in Hashem, that Hashem takes care of us and takes care of everything, is amazing. Having this bitachon is so important. But in addition to this bitachon, in addition to this belief, we have to have also the compassion and the proactivity to also act. As Rav Rosensweig so beautifully says, we have to be junior partners with God. We have to do our hishtadlus. We have to do our actions. We have to take responsibility. And what's going on in Am Yisrael at this point is that everyone is saying, I'm taking care of my own. I'm not even going to take care of everybody else. I'm only involved in my people. And I'm taking care of them, and that's enough. What Megillat Ruth is telling us, it's not enough. We have an opportunity to take care of others, and we have that responsibility. That is our job. And that's, again, what the Midrash is saying. Megillat Ruth is about Gemilot Chesed, caring about others, knowing that responsibility, feeling that responsibility. I'd like to go down now to number 5, to source number 5. Thank you. So what happens? We see Naomi makes this decision to go, and her daughters-in-law are following along. When she goes out, the two daughters-in-law follow, and they're on their way to Eretz Yehudah, which means they're willing to abandon their homes to follow Naomi, to the unknown. And they both cry. And I didn't print the whole conversation, but Naomi constantly is saying, I'm so old, I can't have any children, I won't have a future, don't come with me. There's no possibility that you will have any future in Israel with me. And yet Ruth is constantly saying, no, I want to go with you, I want to be part, Amecha mi ve'elokayech Elokai. Your nation is my nation, and your God is my God. Ba'asher tamuti yamut, wherever you'll die, I'll die, and I will be buried there. Just death will part us. The language that Ruth uses is so compassionate and so passionate about how she feels towards Naomi. And I want to make a point here, which I think is very important. There had to be something about Naomi which was so compelling that Ruth and Orpah wanted to follow her. Ruth gives this unbelievable speech, but Orpah does turn back, because finally, when Naomi pushes her back, Orpah gets the message. And she goes back to her family. There is no future. Naomi is really only going to Israel to die, to go back to her family. And Orpah and Ruth won't really fit there. And yet Ruth wants to follow Naomi because she realizes there's something special about the Jews. There's something special about their compassion. There's something special about them. But you know what? What is so fascinating is that even though she sees it in everything about Naomi, Naomi can't realize it in herself. She can't bring it to fruition. She just wants to go back to Israel to die. But there's something about Judaism. There's something about everything that she learned in the house of Naomi that really pulls her towards the Jewish people. What we're going to see in Megillat Ruth is that through Ruth's compassion and Ruth's love for Naomi and her foresight, she's going to awaken not only Naomi, but also Boaz and all of the leadership in Israel. She's going to bring back something that was lost from the Jewish people at this moment. Because they were in a tragedy and they were in a famine and they were just building themselves up, everybody became too self-centered. No one was realizing that community is really the future. We understand that now. Everyone is in their own home now. We're in coronavirus mode. We're in, difficult mode. It's very easy to just hunker down and care about yourself and not really extend for other people. But that's what we have to do now. That's what Bnei Israel had to do then. And it was Ruth who realized that those are the values of Am Yisrael. She doesn't bring in Moabite values when she comes. She just rejuvenates and brings back the basic values of Avram Avinu, of love, of Hachnasat Orchim, about caring about others. So Ruth cleaves onto her and sticks to her. And Orpah turns back because Orpah is really from the original Lot dynasty. Orpah and Ruth are from Moab. Moab is from Lot. And the Alshech says something very interesting. The Alshech says that there was this spark in Lot. And Lot follows Abraham till a certain point, but then he goes to Sdom. Also Orpah, she follows Naomi till a certain point, but then she turns back. They're willing to go a certain distance, but not all the way. What's beautiful about Ruth is that she has this history behind her of Lot. And as opposed to Orpah, back of the neck, nape of the neck, names are significant. Ruth, according to Midrash Rabbah, is from the word to see. She saw something very special in Am Yisrael. And she is the one who finalizes that journey that we just see starting with Lot. He goes, he turns back, he separates from Abraham. Orpah, she goes, she turns back. But Ruth is going to complete that Lot journey. She's going to complete that journey that really started all the way generations back in Sefer Breshit. And Ruth comes with Naomi, and they come back to town. And when they come back to town, they make it all the way to Eretz Yisrael. Vatelachna shtehem. Look at verse 19, Pasuk Yutet. They walk together. What's the idea of walking together? Rashi, quoting the Midrash, says, when they walk together, it's like they're equals. Because Ruth was learning so much from Naomi, she almost internalized so many values from Naomi. So they're walking together. And also, it's a very interesting language because it's almost like the Akedah, like the sacrifice of Isaac. They're walking together and who knows what the end will bring. Even though Ruth is so enthusiastic, are the women in Israel going to accept her? Is the community going to accept her? What's going to be their welcome? Is it going to be all enveloping and loving? Or is it going to be a difficult time for Ruth and Naomi? Remember, Naomi turned her back on the Jewish community, and Ruth is an outsider coming in, trying to join. So when she comes with Naomi and they meet all the women come out. Look at verse 20, Pasuk Kaf. All the women come out. Hazot Naomi? Is this Naomi? They can't believe she left beautiful, wealthy, successful. And she comes back a shriveled old lady who has lost her husband and lost her sons and has no grandchildren. So what does Naomi answer? Pasuk Kaf, verse 20. Don't call me Naomi. Kir'en li Mara. Call me Mara. Ki heimar shadai li me'od. Call me bitter because God made my life bitter. Again, who is Naomi blaming? Hashem. What should she have said? I'm sorry I left you at that terrible time of need. Instead, she's saying, I got punished. God made my life very bitter. So don't criticize me, right? And be upset that I left. I got my punishment. But she never says she's sorry. She never says it was the wrong thing to do. She never admits any wrongdoing. Look at verse 21, Pasuk Kaf Aleph. Ani meleah halachti. I went full when I left. V'reikam eshivani Hashem. But Hashem brought me back empty. Why are you calling me Naomi? Sweet, charming, wonderful. V'Hashem anali v'shadai herali. God made my life bitter. She's not taking personal responsibility. She's not saying, maybe I had a hand in it. Naomi is feeling like a victim, like things happened to her. But she's not thinking back that maybe she had an opportunity to do something, to act on these things, or maybe to come back and make things right. Naomi is coming back a shattered, broken woman. She's coming back to die. She's coming back to end. She's not coming back thinking, I'm going to rebuild. I'm going to start something anew. But Ruth maybe is coming back thinking she's going to rebuild. She's going to start something anew and join the Jewish people. But no one takes them in. In Pasuk Kaf Bet, they're coming in the beginning of the barley harvest, but no one took them in. The women who all came out to greet her do not take her in. Look at number 6. They have a very important relative. We're in the beginning of Perek Bet. They have a very important relative. And this relative is a Gibor Chayil. He's very successful. He's from Elimelech, Naomi's husband's family, and his name is Boaz. He has potential for strength. Boaz, he has power. He has strength. But again, the theme that we're all doing is the idea of having the potential, but not fulfilling it. What does Ruth say? Ruth says, look at verse 2. Ruth says, you know what? I'm going to go and follow in the fields. I'm going to try to find his field, this relative's field, and I'm going to try to collect and find favor in his eyes. So Ruth is already thinking ahead. And what does Naomi say? Lichi biti. Okay, you can go. Who's taking the proactive stance? It's Ruth. She's going to go to the field. She's going to find him. She's going to find favor in his eyes. But what should have happened? The women should have taken them in. Boaz should have invited them in. There are many different views. Oh, Boaz wanted to do the idea of tzedakah, that they'll collect on their own so they won't feel beholden to him, that they're not going to embarrass them, because of course we don't want to embarrass people when we give them tzedakah. But this is family. Boaz is a relative. He should have taken them in. He should have given them what to eat. She should not have had to go and forage in the fields. Okay, we're going to go back up. I want you to see source number 3, and it's on page 1. We have a very interesting view in the Midrash. And again, I picked these views of the Midrash because these views are very interesting and telling. We saw the first Midrash was critical of Elimelech and Machlon v'Chilion. They should have taken responsibility. This other Midrash in the Gemara, Talmud Bavli, number 3, Talmud Bavli, Masechet Baba Batra, Daf Tzadi Aleph, Amud Aleph, says something very interesting. We have this idea in Tanakh of the contraction of personalities. In Medrash, many times, when we have one person's name and an event, and another person's name and an event, and it happens during a similar time period, the Medrash many times conflates the two personalities. This compression of personalities is a very interesting idea. You all know a few. Shifra and Pua are Miriam and Yocheved. So the Midrash here says that we never have Boaz's name in the Sefer Shoftim, in the Book of Judges. But we have a judge who's from Beit Lechem, who's from the Yehuda dynasty, and his name is Ivtzan. And what we find about Ivtzan is the only thing it tells us in the Book of Judges about Ivtzan is that Ivtzan had many sons and many daughters, and he married off his sons and daughters, and he made many parties for these sons and daughters. And the Midrash here wants to say, you know what? Ivtzan, and the Midrash says is Boaz, in his early iteration, what did Boaz only care about? His family. Marry off his kids, have parties for his kids, And he didn't invite anyone who was not on the A1 list. He had very exclusive parties. In the end of the Midrash, it says they'd have a party in the house of the in-laws and a party in their own home. But they were very exclusive in who they invited. So much so that they didn't invite Manoach and Manoach's wife. Why didn't they invite Manoach? Manoach, we find out later on, is going to be Shimshon, a great judge's father. But we know that Manoach and his wife were barren for many years and did not have children. And when Iftzan was having this party, they did not have children. What did that mean, says the Gemara? Oh, there's no future. It's not worth investing in this person or spending time on this person because it's not going to be a good business connection. It's not going to be a good family connection. So what's the point? The Midrash is trying to portray the leaders of Am Yisrael as being very insular, not caring about others, not Elimelech and not Boaz. So let's continue back to our sources. And I want to go now to page 3, and we're going to go to source number 7. Remember where we are. So again, the Midrash characterizes Boaz as being very insular and caring only about his extended family, but not about everybody else. And that would explain, and that's what the Midrash is based on, Boaz does not invite them in, does not take them into his house and gives them a meal. So you might ask, maybe Boaz just didn't know that they came to town. They were really under the radar. And he didn't understand, who this Naomi and who this Ruth is, or didn't know that they came back. So we see that that's not true. Because look at Ruth Perek Bet, Pasuk Yud Aleph, number 7, verse 11, Pasuk Yud Aleph. When Boaz meets Ruth in the field, and he tells her, you should collect with the field hands. I'll give you a special position of those who collect on a charitable basis. You'll have the first place among those who are charitable collectors. But he doesn't say, come into my house. You sit with the field hands and you drink. You have a special position. You'll get special food, but not really giving her a special invite to the house and not giving Naomi a special invite to the house. So does he know who she is or not? Look, he totally knows who she is. Boaz tells her, Hugedu gadli kol asher asit et chamotech. You know what? You are a special person, Ruth. You know what I heard? You were so nice to your mother-in-law, acharei mot ishech, after your husband died. Because it's very unusual, says the Malbim, and even naturally we know, for the daughter-in-law to be nice to the mother-in-law if the husband died. First of all, there's no connection, and especially if there are no grandchildren. But that's a fraught relationship, the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship. So the fact that you were so nice to your mother-in-law, and this is the first thing he says, that shows something special about you. Number 2, he says, you left your father and mother, ve'eretz moladetech, ve'telchi el am asher lo yadat tmol shilshom, and you're leaving your birthplace, the house of your father and mother, to a new place that you didn't know yesterday and the day before. The same language that we use for Avraham. Lech lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladetecha. So he's identifying her with Avraham. He's giving her high marks. You're very special in the chesed department. Wow, that's unusual. And also in the religion department. You left your nation to join this nation. So he should have said, we are embracing you amazingly. Come, you and Naomi, to my house. But look at his bracha to her. He says, Yishalem Hashem po'alech. May Hashem pay you back for all the things that you've done. V'tihi maskuratech shlema me'im Hashem Elokei Yisrael. You should be paid back by Hashem, by God. Asher bat lachasot tachat knafav. That you came under his wings. Which means Boaz isn't saying, I'm going to take care of you, or the community will take you in. Hashem will take care of you because you came under Hashem's wings. And what does Ruth answer? No. Vatomer emtzachein be'einecha, Adoni. I want to find favor in your eyes. Ki nichamtani. It's so nice that you're giving me this nechama, that you're giving me the standard words. V'dibarta, v'chidibarta lev shivchatecha. You're speaking to the heart of your shivcha, of your maidservant. Va'anochi lo ayeh ke'echat shivchotecha. But I'm not going to be like one of those maidservants, which means don't give me the same speech over and over. Don't give me this speech that you give to others. Don't tell me Hashem is going to take care of me. That's not what this is about. But she can't come out and say, you have to take care of me. She's being subtle. She's hinting, right? Women are from Venus, men are from Mars. She's trying to say it nicely and subtly, right? You really should be taking care of me. She can't say that after he says Hashem should take care of you. Again, the same issue. Naomi, Hashem. Boaz, Hashem. Now, of course, it's wonderful that Hashem takes care of everything, but to say everything and we have no responsibility and we don't have to do anything to take care and be proactive, that is an issue. That is a problem. And this goes on for months and months. I'm on source number 8. Naomi asks, so what's going on in the field? And Ruth keeps on answering, he told me to go after the men. I'm collecting in the fields. I am bringing home a nice supply, but nothing is happening. So what does Naomi tell her? Source number 9. So Naomi finally is now making suggestions. So till now, we saw that really Naomi, the only suggestion she made originally, let's go back to Israel because there's bread. But she doesn't take any responsibility for taking care of Ruth, for finding a future for Ruth, for finding food for herself. Ruth is the one who goes out and does the work in the field to collect. And she finds favor in the eyes of Boaz, but not enough. Finally, in Perek Gimel, we see that Naomi is now turning around. She now is going to make some plans. She has been rejuvenated and really enlivened by Ruth. And finally, Naomi now takes the reins and she says, okay, you tried your way subtly in the field for all these months and you did all the right things and you made an impression on Boaz, but not enough to make him take action. So just like the women in Tanakh, she took bold action. Just like Tamar, who sits in the crossroads, who made sure that Yehuda would take responsibility, so too Naomi realizes that Boaz needs a wake-up call as strong as Tamar's call to Yehuda. We see this pattern in Tanakh, and we see it in the house of Yehuda. This interesting connection of these characters, of this Yehuda model that keeps on following over and over again, that it's the women who at a moment of crisis are able to awaken the leaders and show them, take responsibility. You have to realize that this is your obligation. So now Naomi wakes up and she says to Ruth a beautiful phrase, I am going to find a solution for you and Manoach, a time where you're going to be happy and relaxed and living a life of leisure, asher yitavlach, that will be good for you. Now you have to understand, if Ruth is taken care of, we don't know what's going to happen to Naomi. So far, who's taking care of Naomi? Ruth. If Naomi's going to find a solution for Ruth and Ruth's going to get married, then Naomi might be left high and dry. So just like Ruth was willing to be selfless to help Naomi, now Naomi is willing to be selfless to help Ruth. And this is how we see the wheels are turning in Megillat Ruth. If you are compassionate and you really put yourself for others, others will put themselves out for you. It's infectious. It's something that you realize so plainly that it's something that you should do. If you don't, you're not going to really succeed and have real continuity because the kids see it and then the next generation see it. And those are the messages that you're sending down from generation to generation. Ruth showed Naomi that she has to awaken that compassion in her, that she closed up all that while ago. When Elimelech left, she didn't say anything. When Machlon the Chilion decided to marry Ruth and Orpah and stay, Naomi didn't say anything. Only at the end, she said, okay, we'll go back. But not with a plan, not with a future. Now Naomi has a future. She says, Ruth, we're going to make this happen. You go down to the barn. You make sure that you find him in the middle of the night and you wake him up and put him on the spot. And she goes, and we're in verse 8, Pasuk Chet. She goes in the middle of the night and Boaz is shocked. He notices that Ruth is there. And look at the language. Vayomer. Boaz says to her, Mia, who are you? Now, we know he knows who she is, even if he's awakened in the middle of the night. In Tanakh, when you say miyat, it doesn't mean I really don't know who you are. Just like Shaul at the end of the battle of David and Goliath says, who is this guy? He, of course, knows him. He's helping Shaul fight battles already for a long time. But like, what became of David? So now Boaz asks Ruth, wow, this is bold for you to come in the barn in the middle of the night. Miyat, who are you? What is your claim? What do you want? And she answers, Anochi Ruth amatecha, I am Ruth, your maidservant, right? Like he said, you're my maidservant. But she said, I don't want to be like all the other maidservants. And she says, Uparasta knafecha al amatecha ki goelata. You have to spread your wings on me because you are my redeemer. He wanted her to marry someone else. He wasn't taking her in. He wasn't taking responsibility. She says, no, you told me Hashem has to spread his wings on me. You have to spread your wings on me. And not only is the symbol of wings so beautiful here because it correlates earlier, also what do we call the end of a talit? The kanaf petil techelet, the end of a tzitzit. And what did we put on over individuals to show responsibility? And for a wedding, a chuppah, many times we put the idea of the talit. And what does it symbolize? It symbolizes the corner of your clothing, right? Because men then used to wear the four-cornered clothing. So that would envelop her. The idea, I'm taking responsibility. She's telling Boaz, you have to take responsibility for me. Don't make me just collect in the field. Don't think someone else. It's you. And she calls him the Redeemer because Levirate marriage is only a brother. But Yibum, is only a Levirate marriage is a brother. But Geula, redemption, is the closest relative. Also a double entendre here. She's saying you have the ability to be the Redeemer of all of Am Yisrael, not only my personal Redeemer, but if you redeem me, you're showing your responsibility to the bigger community. Ki Goel Ata. You have this ability to be the Redeemer, the Goel. What is his answer? He says, Bruchat Lashem Biti. You are blessed. This idea of realization, Bruchat Lashem, wow, you are blessed. Even though she's been coming to the field and acting in a certain way, it didn't dawn on him. He didn't realize this depth of his responsibility. And he says, this chesed that you're doing is even better than the first chesed. And what might have been the first chesed? Taking care of the dead husbands or taking care of Naomi. But this one, he says, is even bigger because I wanted to marry you off to the young men, maybe poor or rich, but I'm an older man. I don't really have a future. But Ruth is saying, you do have a future. You have great possibility. And I see that you have that potential. Just like she awakened Naomi, she is awakening Boaz. And what does Boaz say? Wow, don't be afraid. Everything you say I will do, everybody knows that you are an Eshet Chayil, that you are a woman of valor. He didn't realize it even till this moment. But the moment he had this eureka moment and realized, yes, she is someone special, he realized he's going to have to publicize this. And she transformed him. She transformed Naomi and is taking care of Naomi. And he says, okay, I'm going to give you these sheaves of wheat, bring it home to Naomi, and we're going to take care of this. Now he says also something practical. Really, he's using either an excuse or really this was what was in his head the whole time. He's saying there is a closer relative. So maybe I was thinking that you weren't my responsibility because there is a closer relative. And we have to ask this closer relative to redeem you first because we always go by the closest relative. So he says, we're going to see if this closer relative wants to redeem you. And if he redeems you, great. But if not, I will take the responsibility. And of course, what do we see? Let's go to page 4. What do we see? This other individual does not redeem her because he's also worried about his personal possessions and about his family and about his inheritance. And he's worried if, now he's responsible for Ruth and the fields and other things that belong to Naomi and Machlon, the Chilion and Elimelech. It's going to be too much for him. So in the end, Boaz takes responsibility and he marries Ruth. Look at number 10. When they come to the gate of the city, they say something beautiful about Ruth. We're on number 10. And what do they say? Your house is going to be like the house, Pasuk Yud Bet, verse 12, like the house of Peretz that Tamar gave birth to Yehuda. What's this idea? The idea is that this is a continuous legacy, just like Tamar was so special. And she put Yehuda on the spot, and Zerach and Peretz were born, and Peretz is the dynasty that really so far developed leaders in Am Yisrael. So too you'll be like that. And not only that, you are also like Rachel and Leah, like the mothers. You are like Rachel and Leah. Let's just go back to the bottom of page 4 for a moment. Thank you. What do all the women say to Naomi and Ruth, but especially to Naomi? Pasuk Yudalid, verse 14. Baruch Hashem asher lo hishbit lach goel hayom v'yikare shmo b'Yisrael. Thank God that you had someone who redeemed you and you were taken care of, and his name is going to be announced in Israel. What did Naomi think? She's going to let Ruth be taken care of, and that's going to leave Naomi in a lurch. But what everyone is shocked about is that not only did this redemption and marriage of Ruth redeem Ruth, it also redeemed Naomi. And why? Now you could go to page 5, but I want the top line in page 5. Because look at Pasuk Tedvav. Look at the first line on page 5. V'hayalach lemeshiv nafesh ulechalkel et sevatech. This redemption, instead of you losing someone who's taking care of you and you're going to be stuck, this really brought you even more sustenance. Why? And you'll be taken care of in your old age, as opposed to taking care, right, of Ruth. And when Ruth was taken care of and married, she would leave you high and dry because you got her goal to get married. No, Ruth really cared about you as well. So not only is Ruth taken care of, but Ruth loves you so much that she is taking care of you as well. Ki kalatech, because your daughter-in-law, asher ahevatech, who loves you. Yeladatu. Boaz and Ruth get married. They have a child, Oved. This child is a child that Naomi shares in this simcha, in this happiness. If your daughter-in-law loves you, she's better. He tovalach mishiva banim. She's better than 7 sons. Because who control the grandchildren? The mothers. If the mother likes the mother-in-law has access to the kids and feels comfortable with the kids, and the kids feel comfortable with her because there's this love. And all the sons, no matter how many you have, they always have wives that are also involved with the children. So even the women are saying, wow, that's amazing that Ruth really loved you. They thought maybe she's loving you as a ticket to get into Israel, get married, and then you're going to be forgotten. But no, we see how devoted and how real Ruth is about her love and compassion and care for Naomi. Because even after she has a child, she has Naomi there. And even Naomi, look at verse 16, it's as if Naomi is nursing the child. Ruth lets Naomi have such a strong place in this relationship and in this family situation. And the child is even named by the neighbors, these same neighbors who shunned them in the beginning of the book when they came back, now are all connected, are all involved. So when Ruth said, Amech ami ve'elokayach Elokai, we saw it was much easier for her to start with Elokayach Elokai from the religious point of view. But we see finally in the end, she's totally enveloped and welcomed by the entire community. Even the neighbors are partially naming this child. And we end Megillat Ruth with the lineage of David HaMelech. This is so important for us to understand that here is a convert who comes into Am Yisrael, and yet we read this story on Shavuot because she's really using the values of Am Yisrael. she's really mirroring back to us our initial and important values of Avraham Avinu, of compassion, of care. And we see how she does this, just one person at a time, her kind acts, and how she revives individuals and gives them a future. On Kabbalat Torah, it's so important for us to remember the part of Gemilut Chasadim, how important compassion is, how important care is. And I think it's such an important message for us today in this time of coronavirus, where it's so easy to be separated from everybody and not feel this important compassion, and to feel at the end that we don't have a future, that really all bets are off, or let's just huddle together and care about our inner circle. This is especially the time where we have to care about others and reach out. And Torah and mitzvot is all about that. The three pillars, Torah, Avoda, and Gemilut Chasadim, the three pillars of Torah, of the Jewish community. Al Shlosha Dvarim Ha'olam Amed. On these three pillars, the world really stands. And I think Megillat Ruth really gives us that message, how important it is and how easy it is by devotion and these acts, and sometimes not so easy, but really putting ourselves out, and how important that is. So I want to end with a Chag Sameach for everybody, and that we should really have a healthy and wonderful Shavuot and feel this amazing compassion and really reconnect and recommit in a most wonderful way. So Chag Sameach for everybody, and happy Mother's Day again. Mothers and Mothers-in-Law Day.
Thank
for
you.
everybody.
Okay, I'm going to just open it up now for some questions in case anybody has any questions. We did have a few questions come in. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the first question is, in the story, they were criticized for not helping each other, but there was a famine. So if you're so focused on saving yourself, how can you be expected to also save others? And then therefore nowadays, when people are so focused on their own health, how can you then be focused on others?
It's a wonderful question. Now, number one, Elimelech is a leader. He is one of the leaders of the community, and this was his job, and that's why he's criticized. I mean, that's what leadership is. Leadership is caring about others in addition to yourself. It doesn't mean you don't have to care about yourself, but I think that's what we're expecting, that they should look they should look beyond themselves, and we totally understand. And again, we don't criticize everybody, and this is the Tanakh teaching us these important lessons. But for us to get over either today, this crisis in Tanakh of famine, then we have to care about others. We have to care about people beyond ourselves, because that's the way. Of course, we care about our own first. Our family is always first. And then the poor in our community is first. Even when we give tzedakah, Aniyei ircha kodmim la'aniyei ir acheret. But we still have responsibilities. And I think that's very important for us to understand, that of course we can always take a pass and say things are so difficult, we only can care about ourselves. But if we do that, then we lose this ability of community coming together to help each other. And it is very difficult. And we're not being critical and saying, oh, you know, everybody who doesn't do this is you know, not successful. But going that extra mile is really what makes leadership, is what makes someone unique. And David HaMelech had to come from someone who really saw beyond. Yehuda had to admit to Tamar that he didn't take that responsibility. We understand that he didn't want to marry Tamar off to Shelah, the third son, because she was the kiss of death to the two sons. But then don't leave her high and dry. You have a responsibility to her. What's going to be your responsibility? And I think that's very important. I think if we go beyond ourselves a little, then that really can change so many things. And I think that's why Megillat Ruth, with these little acts, they're very devoted acts, but things can change tremendously. It doesn't mean you have to be, you know, on such a high level. Just these acts that every single person can do can really just change the whole trajectory. And I think that's one of the beautiful pieces of Megillat Ruth.
Okay, thank you. Another question that came in was, what chesed should we be focusing on today? Is there something specific, like you were mentioning tzedakah or something specific?
Well, I think, again, it's very important to learn lessons from Tanakh. I do think tzedakah, I do think inclusion it's so easy today for people to feel isolated because we're all isolated in our own families, in our own houses, in our own circles, wherever house we live in or wherever we are. And I think that is very disconcerting to us because we're such a communal community and we care about others. And I think that's very important. Reaching out. I think the story of Megillat Ruth is really talking about reaching out. I love these classes. This is the way the community is getting together, even though we're all separate. Having these shiurim, letting people know, calling people up personally, finding out how they are, how they're doing. I think that's what Ruth shows us, that caring, putting yourself out is something amazing. And it just brings Naomi to life, who thinks she's finished. And yet that care, that compassion. And I think it really opens people up. And I think we see that with Naomi, that really changed her.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. That's true. That's really important today. So I think nobody has any other questions. Thank you so much, Professor.
Now, my pleasure. It was so wonderful. And I want to, again, just wish everyone Chag Kasher V'Sameach. And is my father still listening? We talk all the time. I spoke a minute before this class to give him the numbers to call again, just to make sure. But it's just so wonderful. And hopefully we'll have other opportunities to study together.
Oh, so much. Really, I'm getting feedback already how much people have loved it. So thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Have a great night.
Really, only hatzlacha, and we should only share good news, and everyone should be healthy. And we should only share simchas together and in person.
Yes, amazing. That's a great, yes. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Take care. Everyone stay well.
Thank you.